Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really provocative theory from the Predictive History series, a theory that basically recasts the entire story of empires as we know it. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The source material we're looking at today starts with this pretty radical idea. What if major historical identities, the very things that define us, weren't organic at all? What if they were deliberately constructed by empires to achieve their goals? Right. So, how in the world would you even begin to uncover a so-called secret history? Well, the source proposes a very specific analytical framework that it calls predictive history. Now, this framework is used to argue that empires have, again and again, literally manufactured identities. We're talking both national and religious ones, just to serve their own geopolitical goals. It looks at history through the lens of game theory, always asking cui bono, who benefits from any given event. And it analyzes religious texts not as sacred documents, but as political manifestos. So in this view, identity isn't something that just grows on its own. It's a weapon, forged by the state. So let's see how this actually works in practice. The theory kicks off its first case study with one of the most influential texts ever written, the Bible. The source argues that King David, after he usurped the throne from King Saul, he had a massive crisis of governance on his hands. And to solve it, he commissioned the Bible. And according to this theory, the Bible was just a brilliant piece of political engineering. Think about it. To solve his legitimacy problem, it frames David as being chosen by God himself. To create unity among this messy coalition of mercenaries and priests and local tribes, it invents a single shared family history. And to differentiate his new kingdom from its powerful neighbors, it introduces a superior patron god, Yahweh. The source claims that stories like David and Bathsheba were basically ancient PR. The rumor on the street was that David, this mercenary king, had his popular soldier Uriah killed because he was a political threat. So the Bible, allegedly, reframes this cold-blooded assassination as a crime of passion, a much, much more manageable scandal for a brand new ruler. So this Imperial Playbook, then, scales way up, moving from a tiny kingdom to one of the world's very first great empires, Persia. According to this theory, the Persian emperor Cyrus the Great didn't free the Israelite exiles in Babylon out of the goodness of his heart. No, he sent them back to Jerusalem for a very specific and very strategic purpose. And this is the classic divide and rule strategy. The Levant was, and it still is, the strategic gateway to Egypt, which was the breadbasket of the ancient world. So by sending these exiles back, Persia created a new, purified Jewish identity that was fiercely loyal to its Persian patrons. This intentionally sparked conflict with the people who were already living there, creating a proxy group, a local ally that would stay dependent on Persia for protection. And just like that, the region was secured for the empire. And here we have one of its most controversial claims, that the modern Jewish identity, with its focus on blood purity and strict monotheism, wasn't some natural evolution. It was a Persian imperial construct designed from the ground up for geopolitical control. Now, the source argues this playbook wasn't just something that happened in the East. Next, it applies the exact same critical lens to the rising power over in the West, the Roman Empire. The theory presented here is that Rome's most famous story, the war against Hannibal, is a complete and total fabrication, an invented history created to excuse an act of brutal imperial aggression. And this illustrates the core argument just perfectly. Why would you make up a story like that? Because destroying Carthage, Rome's biggest economic rival, was an act of pure aggression. So, a Greek historian, who was being held as a Roman hostage, allegedly invented the entire conflict. This propaganda masterpiece painted Rome not as a ruthless aggressor, but as a victim, just acting in self-defense against a monstrous enemy. So this brings us all the way to the modern era. The source argues that this imperial playbook, it didn't just vanish with the ancient world. It was simply adapted. And this is where it gets really wild. The source presents the Balfour Declaration not as some unique event, but as the British Empire running the exact same divide and rule playbook that Persia used thousands of years earlier, in the exact same strategic region for the exact same purpose, controlling the gateway to Egypt and the wider Middle East. This right here is the thread that connects all the case studies. It frames the creation of the Israelites, the invention of the Jews, the justification of Rome's conquest, and even the founding of the modern state of Israel as repeated applications of a single, hidden imperial playbook. And finally, based on all these historical patterns, the source makes some pretty bold predictions for the future of the region. It foresees the rebuilding of a third temple in Jerusalem, the eventual transformation of Israel into a theocracy, and the rise of a dominant regional power it calls Pax Judaica, all as the next logical steps in this long-running imperial script. And that's really the provocative final thought from this source material. It leaves us to consider not just the history we've been taught, but the hidden forces that might be shaping the history we are all living through right now.